Good evening, everyone. Let me do this first.
Hello, hello.
Welcome. Yes, good evening, everyone. We're so excited to have you here for Thriving Thursdays. We're continuing our theme with Mental Health Awareness Month as we're in May. And I'm so excited to have our special guest, Aneesha Perkins, tonight. So I'm going to share a little bit about her, but I want to share a little bit about InnoPsych first, and then we will start our program. So I'm Dr. Charmaine Jackman. I am a psychologist, and I'm the founder and CEO of InnoPsych, Inc. We are on a mission to disrupt racial disparities in mental health, and we are doing that through a number of different platforms. One is like today, we have our conversation, a weekly conversation about mental health in communities of color in particular, the stigma that we have, and how do we create avenues for access and utilization of therapy and other mental health resources for our communities, because we need it to thrive, we need it to heal, and we need it to survive. So I am going to share, we have a National Therapist of Color directory, which you can find the website listed below. And it features therapists across the country in different disciplines. So we have psychologists, we have social workers, LPCs, arts therapists, movement therapists, nurse practitioners, psychiatrists, we have it all. So please, if you are looking for a therapist, please check out our website. And if you are a therapist, we encourage you to join the directory. This is some of our programming that we've offered over the last 2 years. We do our weekly Thriving Thursdays, but we also do a bunch of different topics. We try to address topics that impact our community, like suicide, and also how our faith impacts our connection to mental health and our ability to access those services. I'm a big proponent of mindfulness and using strategies like gratitude. So sometimes you'll get little mindfulness with Dr. Jackman moments as well. We have a blog, and we'll talk a little bit more about this because Ms. Perkins is our content creator. So she's been creating a lot of new content for us, and it's been really amazing to see that. So we encourage you to check that out on our website as well. And we really are excited about our 2021 campaign. Our goal is to feature 2021 therapists of color on our directory this year. We are just at the beginning of our goal, but we're moving, and it's because of people like you who continue to support InnoPsych and spread the word that is helping us to grow our network. So thank you for all of your support by coming to our events, by recommending our directory to your friends and your family and your coworkers. We really appreciate it. And I just love the way that this community is growing. We have so many exciting things coming up. You just can't imagine. So please stay tuned with us. All right, so I am going to stop sharing my screen right now. And I am going to introduce our guest speaker. Our guest today, Aneesha Perkins, is a third-year clinical psychology doctoral student at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. She has a Master's of Arts in Counseling Psychology, which that's also my degree, from Trinity Christian College, and a Master's in Clinical Psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology in DC. She's the content creator for InnoPsych, as I mentioned before. She's a writer, a speaker, presenter, and she enjoys helping women find wholeness and holistic healing. Oh, I love that. All right. She also enjoys teaching children about emotional wellness. Her clinical interests include mindfulness, generational patterns, and trauma. Man, I feel like we're kind of twins. I love what your interests are, and so many connections to what I do in my work as well. So one of the things I love to start and share and ask all of my guests is, why did you get into this field? Why psychology? Why is it important to you? What was the drive? What was the inspiration for you in getting into the field?
Well, that's a good question. Thanks for having me. First off, I'm so excited to be here. I love the work that you're doing at InnoPsych and just glad to be a part of the team. And so really what drove me into the field is I've always just had a love for people, for helping people. I've always just enjoyed listening to others. And for some reason, people have kind of been drawn to me in the sense of just kind of talking and me just lending my ear. And I would say, even at a young age, I was like into understanding the way behaviors and mindsets, and I was just into those things. And I always was just really observant of human behavior, and so it came naturally, I would say, for me.
Yeah, I really connect to that too. I grew up as an only child. My sister is 15 years younger than I am. So I did a lot of observing. Like I love like people watching. I was definitely more reserved. And so that like allowed me to take things in. And so, yeah, I really connect to that. I forgot to just welcome our audience. So please, thank you for joining us today. Please share in the comment section in the chat where you're zooming in from, and any questions that you have for us today. We'll want to make sure we get to those. So just kind of notice yourself kind of drawn to people and observing people's behavior. That was kind of the drive for you. As a Black woman in this field, so psychologists make up about 4% of all psychologists in the field. Like, so we're kind of a minority, or more of a minority, right? And so did you have examples of psychologists in your life? Like, how did you know that this was going to be the career for you?
Well, I didn't have many examples of psychologists in my life. I did have a godfather, and he was a psychologist. I'm from Illinois, and he was a psychologist in school, and so I was able to see him as an example, and really know, like, okay, I see someone in my family. We consider him to be family. I see someone in my family that is doing this, and this is something that I could see myself doing as well. And so I had a unique kind of pathway, but eventually I did circle back to the field of psychology, and he was that first model of me seeing it.
That's awesome. I love that you had a real life person, because my model was a TV character called Bob Newhart. I'm probably aging myself right now. Bob Newhart show, I was in Barbados. We had one channel at the time, but I just love this quirky character who had this private practice while his wife ran a bed and breakfast in the New England area, and look where I ended up, right? Wow. So that's so amazing that you have those examples, because I think for many, and I work at a high school right now, and many students are interested in the field, but they hear negative messages. Like they get their parents say, well, mental health is not a real thing, it's a weakness, you're not going to make any money. So they have all these messages. And how exciting to have an example and someone to mentor you into the field. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do at InnoPsych as well, is try to encourage, again, shifting that conversation and helping young people know that this is a viable career and we need you. And we're going to need you, given like what we've dealt with in COVID. Like, we know this mental health stuff is not going away, never was.
Oh,
right?
Not at all. Not at all. I think we'll definitely see an increase of things as the world is beginning to open up and everything. So
very cool. Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about stigma and talk a little bit about what did you hear growing up about therapy or mental health? What were some of the messages that you were exposed to? I know you had a godfather who was a psychologist, but I'm curious if there were other messages that you got about mental health and therapy.
I think that just like different words I would hear in conversations I would hear in passing would just kind of be around, that's something for crazy people, or it didn't seem like something that was commonly practiced within the Black community. And so it was kind of like, I guess those would be the two running themes, is that there's something, there was the stigma around the name being called crazy, or just not seeing it done a lot within the Black community or people around me.
Right. People weren't talking about it, right? So there was that was loud and clear. Like that absence of conversation is very clear too, right? That gives a lot of message.
And I think also too, one more thing is really the conversation that I think we hear often is that, what's happening in this household, stays in this household. And so I think that
Oh
seems
yeah.
a theme that was kind of circulating as well.
Yeah, that's a powerful one, right? You don't tell your business. So I said my Caribbean accent, you don't tell your business outside the house, right? You just don't do that.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful message that you don't talk. And, I always say, like, what if your family or the people you're having struggle with, right? And you can't talk to anybody outside, then what?
Right.
The other piece that we hear a lot people really struggle with is the faith and spirituality piece, right? That if you are a believer, then you shouldn't have mental health problems or you shouldn't go to therapy, that you just pray about it. And I think for people, the research shows that among Black women, particularly older Black women, spirituality is one of the main resources of access and self-care, right? Access and support. And what if your support is telling you that what you're experiencing is wrong or the devil, or you're not doing enough to help yourself out of it? So I've been really fortunate to have a pastor who gets mental health and talks about mental health from the pulpit. I think it's really been, I'm at a historically Black church, so it's been really, I think, empowering for people. And I get people come up to me and say, can you help me find, and so like, I just love that. I just love being able to do that for folks.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that as time is changing and things are progressing, that the church is becoming more open to the mental health field. We're able to now see that it can integrate, and it can integrate very well. And so when you think about different things within the faith, I mean, emotions is something. If you're talking about the Bible, there are many characters that have emotions and a range of emotions. And so that's healthy, and so I love what's happening. I love that it seems to be more, there seems to be this integration that is being created between the two.
Nice, great. So your student, your third year student, what does that even mean? We have a question. What does that mean to be a third year student? How long is a PhD program? That's one of the top questions I get from the youth that I work with. How long do I have to go to school if I want to do this? So can you break it down a little bit, like what that journey is to becoming a psychologist?
Of course. So I'm in a PsyD program. And so
What does that mean? Nope. Yeah. What does that mean? A PsyD?
So it's a doctorate of psychology. And so the PhD, which is the more common one, is the doctor of philosophy. And so my degree is focused on research, but then the practice part. So being in front of people and working with people. So it's an even share of understanding how to become a researcher, but then also understanding how to work with people as well. And so my program is 5 years. The first year is just complete coursework. The second through fourth year, you add on top of coursework, you add on doing an externship. And so that means you're working typically like 8 to 16 hours a week at a different, it could be like a hospital setting, it could be private practice, it could be a community health center. There's diversity as far as the settings that you can work at. And so that's the really cool part too. And so the fifth year there's no coursework and it's a 1-year internship. And so, so that's really the journey. And it's really cool because like I said, it's hands-on experience. So in every year, this year, for instance, this is my third year I'm finishing, it has been therapy focused. And so I've been providing therapy, individual, family, children, at a private practice. And last year I was at a charter school in DC, and I did assessments and a little bit of therapy. And so you get to explore and kind of get trained in different areas between assessment and therapy. So it's really cool. I love it.
So yeah, you talk about like there's a difference between a PhD and a PsyD, which is Doctor of Philosophy is a PhD, which often focuses a lot on research. But it sounds like in your program, you're also doing research, right? So the activities in doctoral programs in graduate school include your coursework, your clinical internships or counseling, depending on what your specialty is, doing research, being a research assistant for a professor. um, and then, there are papers, we take courses, there are papers, there are exams you have to take. So there's a lot. I mean, I just remember it being like very busy, but I was so committed to the journey and to learning. And, the internships were the most fulfilling for me. Yeah. I'm curious for you. What is it like going out on your internship and your clients seeing you show up as a Black woman in this space? Maybe even for your younger clients or even the women that you serve. Like, what has that been like when your clients see like, oh, she's gonna be my therapist, right?
Yeah. So it was, so it's been an awesome experience. I'll talk a little bit about last year when I worked at a charter school in DC, and it was an African-American school. And there was one young lady who used to walk around and say, I can't wait. One day you're going to be a psychologist. And she wanted to be a doctor. So I would say, I can't wait. One day you're going to be a doctor. And so we always had this exchange. But I think it was really powerful for these young Black students to be able to see me and be able to touch and talk to someone that, maybe they didn't see often, they didn't see therapists or psychologists of color, and so I think because maybe they were able to see me do it, then that even helped them to say, well, maybe this is a possibility for me too. Mm-hmm. And so it's been an awesome experience. And then it's been an awesome experience this year working in private practice and just working with my clients and them seeing me as a young Black woman. It's been a great experience, and representation definitely matters.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's funny, when I first started, I was really pulled to like using Dr. Jackman, because I wanted the students to know that I was a doctor and that they could ask questions like, what does that mean, right? Like, and how long was school, right? I wanted that to be important, that they could see that image. So yeah, and I think, I've had a number of students become that I've, worked with or mentored, end up going into the field. So which has been really positive. It's been really positive. So a question that I get a lot, and I'd love to hear you talk about it, a little bit about like what happens in the therapy room. Can you unpack that? And, I always tell people like we have different theoretical styles that we're trained on. A lot of clinicians of color are translating how they're trained to when they're working with the communities, right, that they connect to, because a lot of how we were trained are necessarily culture responsive. They don't get it, right? So we have to make those translations sometimes on our own or within our affinity spaces. So what happens in your therapy room? When a client walks in, what might they expect when they are meeting with the future Dr. Perkins?
Well, I would say that I love to bring my theoretical orientation, which is family systems. And then I also am eclectic in a way that I will include CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I'll include some interventions from there, but I'll start from the family systems part. So really from the family systems part is believing that the individual is impacted by their family, right? And so there's a connection. And I always like to think about it as a body, right? And so your sister may be the arm, your brother may be another arm, and all of these parts are connected and impact each other. And so as I'm working with the client, they are the client front and center, but I'm also trying to work with them to understand how their family has played a role in, what they're seeing and what they're presenting with as well. And then from the CBT perspective, that looks at attitudes and thoughts and how they impact your behavior. And so it's always helpful working with my clients to help them understand, okay, what thoughts are you having? What situations triggered these thoughts? What behaviors are these leading to? What are you seeing as a result? And so really helping them understand their thoughts and their triggers, and whether it's reframing those thoughts, whether it's helping them I heard you say earlier that you love mindfulness. I love mindfulness too.
Nice.
So, so I'm always incorporating mindfulness. I'm always bringing in breathing exercises when it's fit, when it's appropriate. And so really, I love to treat the clients as individuals and understand what their needs are, what they're seeing, and just kind of going from there. But I mean, it's really cool. I'll also say this too. One of the things I do with my clients, as it pertains to family systems, are like genograms. And so genograms you could kind of think of them in a way as a family tree, but a lot more in depth. But it really helps you identify family members and understand relationship dynamics and patterns, whether it's in communication, in broken or in loving relationships. I mean, it's so in depth, but it's rich information. And I really care about generational patterns and helping individuals understand the patterns that are within their family. So it's one of my favorite interventions and activities to do with the clients. And when they see, the patterns, it's kind of like, wow, because you can look at like 3 generations. You can go really far as far as 3 generations. So
yeah, that's very powerful. I love doing genograms, particularly with my adolescent clients, but with all, it's really helpful to understand. And even for them, it's so much information that they're gathering. Sometimes they have to do interviews with their family to get that. That's really cool. And even to break down like what happens in therapy, again, it varies depending on the therapist's style. But when you come into the room, like I like to bring joy into my sessions. And therapy can be hard work, but it doesn't mean it has to be serious work all the time. So initially we're asking questions about you to get some information about you and your family history and your own personal history, things that your strengths, challenges that you've had, any traumas that you might have experienced. So it's really helpful for us to get a good sense of who you are. Sometimes those first couple of sessions can feel like you're getting asked a lot of questions, and I definitely try to make it so it's not all, I don't ask everything in the beginning, because I think that can turn people away, but also kind of hearing from you, like, what are your goals? What do you want to work on in therapy? I think that's also really important for people to think about as they're coming into this space. You don't have to necessarily have all the answers, because some of our questions will help you kind of formulate or think about what those goals might be. And then again, it's just having a conversation. Again, therapy is more talk therapy. So they might ask you questions, or you might share a challenge that you've had. And for me, I might help you kind of think about, how did that impact you? What did you notice, right? I do a lot of CBT in my practice as well. So thinking about how your thoughts and your behaviors and your emotions are connected. That's what CBT is really about. And so practicing mindfulness strategies to help you relax. So teaching tools. And I do homework. So you may have homework to journal or something, or practice something in session, or notice how something that we talked about in session, how it might play out in your life. So a lot of that work happens outside of the therapy room. And one of your recent blogs was about that, right? How to get the most out of your therapy session. I think we just launched that today. So that's really helpful to know. I think a lot of people, really, it's so mysterious, right? And it happens behind this closed door. So it's like, well, what actually happens? Some people are like, well, they're going to change me, or they're going to insert these thoughts. Like, no, it's like, you're doing the work. Like, your therapist is not doing the work. You're doing the work. And if we're working too hard, then we're like, we gotta assess the situation, because something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you would add about like like what happens in that space? in the
Um,
therapy room? That's this mysterious place?
I mean, I think it's a place where it's just I use the word, it's a beautiful space. It's a space that you are welcome to be just authentically you. And the things that you may be afraid or scared to share with others, there's this space that all of you is welcome. All of you is welcome. And we're here to embrace and to talk with you and to encourage, to challenge sometimes, to support, and so I just think it's a place where it's just a lot of healing can take place, and it's a powerful place.
For sure, for sure. So, talking about therapists, so um, one of the things I always ask my guests is talk about a personal struggle that you've experienced. And part of the reason that I do this, I really want people who are thinking about therapy or nervous about it or have questions about it to know that we often go through a process where we're also seeking therapy ourselves. Like, we're not perfect people, right? We've also experienced struggle, and we've used some of the strategies that we're using with you. I think the best therapists have gone through a therapy process, and many of our graduate programs actually require that we are strongly emphasize that we seek out therapy. So talk a little bit about a personal struggle that you've experienced and kind of how did you navigate that? What were some of the tools that helped you through that difficult time?
I would say that one of my personal struggles was unhealthy dating relationships, and
Mhm.
really how that led to this journey of self love. Because what was happening, I was just like, okay, why do I find myself in the same situation over and over again as it pertains to dating and relationships? And so I had this aha moment where it was like, Aneesha, the common denominator is not them, it's actually you.
Wow. Whoa.
You.
Wow.
It's you, you
Mm.
know?
That's
Um,
powerful. Like that's part of therapy, but that's powerful, right? When you've come to that place. And sometimes it's hard, right? It's like, oh, ouch. Right? That's an ouch moment. That's an aha moment, but that's also an ouch moment.
it was definitely an ouch moment. It was an ouch moment for sure. But I will say that's the beautiful thing about growth is that it's uncomfortable,
Mm.
but once you begin to work through it, it's liberating, it's free. And
Mm.
so that's what it was for me. Is it hurt, it was like, here's the band-aid on the wound, and you're like uncovering it and saying, okay, like putting some attention on it. And so um from that moment, I just began this journey of saying, okay, so what am I experiencing on the inside? What's going on with me to find myself in this situation? And so over and over again. And so really, I just like stepped away from dating. I began to focus on my own healing. I did that in so many different ways. I began to work out, and to kind of, because working out is a stress reliever, physical activity
Yes.
is good for you. And
Mhm.
so I
Yeah.
began working out. We've talked about faith. So I looked to God, and I really began, strengthening my faith muscles.
Mm.
Um, I did some journaling. That was my way of kind of like, I'm a huge creative, right? I love writing. I'm a writer at heart. And so I found so much healing in writing. And I started a blog.
Okay.
Uh, I started that Water Love, and
Mhm.
it was about transparency. And it was about, even in these imperfections, even in these challenges that I'm having, like showing them and working through them. And so I really just started this journey of like, how can I accept what I've done and accept what I see and accept me? And then that led into like, okay, forgiveness. Okay, so now I need to forgive myself for what I've done. I need to forgive the others. And it's like I just kept learning lesson after lesson on this journey. And it was a gradual process. It didn't happen like, snap a finger and it it was a process. But I learned so much about myself. I learned how to love myself. I learned about my worth. And so it, like you said, it really encouraged me and my desire to work with women, is understanding some of the challenges, even as it pertains to relationship dynamics. And so it's been a journey, but
Yeah. So I heard you say you self-love.
Mhm,
I heard physical exercise. I heard journaling.
mhm,
And there was one other faith.
mhm.
So you didn't just rely on one thing, right? And I think that's so important for people to hear. It's like there's a lot of things that you're doing and working together in concert together to kind of come to this place of wholeness, of sense of emotional wellness, of thriving, of healing, right? That there are a lot of things that you're working to put together to do that.
I'll,
So powerful.
I'll also throw in there too, that I also have a therapist.
Okay.
I'm working on being a therapist, but I want to have a therapist because I want to make sure. The thing about therapy is you just have someone who may see maybe your blind spots, right? And so I think it's good for me as a student, but also as a therapist to others to know what's going on and to work through the different challenges and the obstacles that maybe I may go through at different times. So I have
Right.
a therapist as well.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important for people to hear that that we also seek therapy. So those were a lot of wonderful strategies that you just shared with us, and I think so powerful again that bringing things together, not just relying on one thing to help through these challenging moments. Thank you for sharing that, and I think a lot of people will connect to that because dating and finding that partner is something that we all strive for. And sometimes it's really easy to blame the other person and not, and I think it's not all one or the other, right? But it's when you're people together, but what are you noticing for yourself? How are you choosing partners, right? What are things that you're not attending to or ignoring? What are not things that you're not in your awareness that might contribute to making mistakes in who you choose to partner with? So
Yep. And it's all connected because when I was able to develop a better sense of self-love and an awareness of my dating patterns, I was able to say, okay, what is it that I'm really looking for? And, what do I need to be, to put myself in that space and be available for it, you know?
receive it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Great. So we're almost out of time. So what is one strategy that you will share that we always kind of answer, one strategy that you use that you think contributes to healing? One thing that you would want to share with our audience today?
Um, I would say I'm really big with myself and even with my clients on making space for my feelings and emotions. And
Mhm.
so, for certain clients, that may look like we're looking at a feelings wheel. You can Google that, but there's a feelings wheel. Being able to identify what am I feeling today, making space for it. Why do I feel that way? What led to this? And I just think it's been healing because then I'm not trying to cover up what I'm feeling or, but I'm just kind of putting it on the table, acknowledging it and making space for it. And
Mhm.
our feelings and our emotions deserve space. So that has
Yes.
definitely been a tool.
Yes. I say feel what you feel.
Yes.
And like, given what we've all been through this last year and a half, like being able to name, and I think, again, Google it, the feeling wheel, like, there are more feelings beyond happy, sad, mad, angry, right? And their intensities, right? And the feeling will help you to develop your feeling vocabulary, right? How do you name the emotions that you're having? I think it's so important. And then being able to, like, it's okay to have them. Every feeling you have is acceptable, right? And that's what I tell my own children, it's like, you're allowed to have your feelings. You can control then how you express those feelings to others. And that's the part. But if you feel like our feelings are coming out of nowhere and we get dysregulated by them, it's really hard then to manage how they play out and how we interact with other people around us.
Yep. And that's when great tools like mindfulness come into place.
Yes, yes.
And taking deep breaths and just becoming more mindful. So yeah.
Yes, for sure. And definitely check out InnoPsych. Our resource page has lots of resources. There's a guided meditation on there that I did a while ago. I need to add some more to that. And I know, Aneesha, you're working on some other blogs, so please check out our blog, InnoPsych.com/blog, to see what we're writing. So lots of content that I think people are really connecting to. There've been a lot. I don't know if you've checked the comments, but there's been a lot of positive comments as well to some of the blogs. So really cool. So the last thing that I'm going to share is part of Mental Health Awareness Month. Again, we're really promoting, again, people having more awareness around what is mental health and why is it important, and also making sure people are connecting to resources that can help you navigate challenging situations in your life. So I'm going to show a promo video that we created a little while ago to talk about, to really emphasize and express the importance of your mental well-being. So I'm going to play this, and then we'll close it out for right now. So I'm going to share sound. All right, can you see that?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to make it bigger. Oops, there we go. Hey sis.
What's up, bro?
Do you have a therapist?
I know. Therapy can be complicated, but you know what? I'm a therapist.
I want you to know that even though therapy was not made for us, it doesn't mean that we can't make it work for us.
I want you to go somewhere where you can reflect
and learn new ways of coping. A place that is just for you.
It's time to do more than just survive.
It's time to thrive.
Now go get you a therapist.
All right. So this has been wonderful. Here we go. Welcome to Thriving Thursday. Oops. Sorry about that. So yeah, this has been wonderful. Again, thank you, Aneesha, for being our guest this month. And again, please check us out on our website, InnoPsych.com, for more information. Again, we're going to have lots of programming coming in May. We have some surprises coming in June and July. So stay tuned and have a good evening. Take care.